In the vibrant campus of Akwaibom State University, a young man we shall identify as Tony, though not his real name, had built a reputation as a charismatic and fearless individual. As a prominent member of the Supreme Vikings confraternity, Tony never shied away from openly displaying his affiliation with the group. His confidence and charm had earned him the esteemed title of Mr. Akwaibom State University, a distinction bestowed upon exceptional students who embodied the institution's values. Tony's extroverted personality and unapologetic allegiance to the Vikings had made him a familiar figure on campus. However, his prominence also drew attention from rival groups, particularly the Black Axe confraternity. The history between the Vikings and Black Axe was marred by a series of clashes, which, although intense, had never resulted in fatalities. The university, founded approximately 17 years ago, had witnessed its fair share of confraternity-related skirmishes, but the violence had always been contained, with no recorded deaths. That fateful day, however, would change the course of the university's history forever. Tony's life was brutally cut short by members of the Black Axe confraternity, marking the first ever recorded death due to confraternity violence within the institution's walls. The events leading up to Tony's assassination were rooted in a seemingly trivial incident, which would ultimately escalate into a deadly confrontation. It began with a scuffle between Viking members and a Black Axe member within the school premises. The altercation, sparked by an undisclosed issue, resulted in the Black Axe member being beaten by the Viking group. Seeking justice, the battered Black Axe member reported the incident to his fellow Axemen, who were incensed by the news. United in their quest for retribution, the Black Axe members set out to identify and apprehend the specific Viking members responsible for the assault. As tensions simmered, the campus became a powder keg, awaiting the spark that would ignite a deadly conflict. The air was thick with anticipation, and the students, though unaware of the impending tragedy, sensed the escalating hostility. The Vikings, confident in their numbers and influence, remained defiant, while the Black Axe members seethed with anger, their desire for vengeance burning brighter with each passing moment. In the midst of this volatile atmosphere, Tony, oblivious to the danger lurking in the shadows, continued to live life on his own terms. His carefree attitude and refusal to back down from his Viking allegiance would, however, prove to be a fatal combination. The Black Axe members, driven by a hunger for revenge, had already set their sights on Tony, and it was only a matter of time before they struck. The Black Axe members, driven by their quest for vengeance, embarked on a mission to apprehend the Viking members responsible for the assault on their fellow Axemen. Their investigation led them to Eagle's Lodge, a hostel within the university notorious for being a Viking stronghold. The hostel's corridors and surroundings were often patrolled by Viking members, who maintained a visible presence to assert their dominance. Undaunted by the Viking presence, the Black Axe members, approximately 30 in number, launched a daring invasion of the hostel. They stormed the premises, their eyes scanning the surroundings for any sign of their quarry. The Axemen began making inquiries, asking questions about the specific Viking members they sought. However, their efforts were met with disappointment as the Viking members they were looking for were nowhere to be found. As the Black Axe members continued their search, Tony, who had been watching the scene unfold from the comfort of his room, mistakenly assumed the Axemen were his fellow Vikings. He emerged from his room, torchlight in hand, and flashed it on the group. The sudden burst of light caught the Axemen off guard, and they instinctively ordered Tony to switch off his torchlight. However, Tony, still under the impression that he was interacting with his fellow Vikings, refused to comply with the order. Instead, he responded with a phrase that would prove to be his undoing, "Who goes there?" This particular term was a distinctive part of the Vikings' mode of communication, a secret phrase known only to members of the confraternity. The Black Axe members' eyes widened in surprise as they realized that Tony was, in fact, a Viking. His careless mistake had inadvertently revealed his true affiliation, and the Axemen seized upon this opportunity. They swiftly moved to apprehend Tony, their intentions far from benevolent. As they closed in on him, Tony's realization of his mistake came too late, and he was faced with the grim reality of his predicament. As the reality of the situation dawned on Tony, he realized with a jolt of adrenaline that the group of men surrounding him were not his fellow Vikings, but rather members of a rival confraternity. Panic set in as he understood the gravity of his mistake. With a surge of fear, Tony attempted to flee the scene, dashing away from the hostile group as fast as his legs could carry him. The Black Axe members, fueled by their desire for revenge, gave chase, hot on Tony's heels. In a split second, they opened fire, unleashing a hail of bullets in Tony's direction. One of the bullets found its mark, striking Tony and sending him stumbling forward. Despite his injuries, Tony summoned every last ounce of strength and managed to jump over the fence, momentarily escaping his pursuers. However, Tony's reprieve was short-lived. The bullet wounds he sustained had taken their toll, leaving him exhausted and weakened. As he struggled to catch his breath, Tony realized that he couldn't continue running. His legs buckled beneath him, and he collapsed to the ground, unable to move. The Black Axe members, relentless in their pursuit, quickly caught up with Tony. With a ruthless efficiency, they ended his life, silencing him forever. The sound of gunfire echoed through the air, a haunting reminder of the senseless violence that had just unfolded. The news of Tony's tragic demise spread like wildfire throughout the institution, sending shockwaves of fear through the student body. The university, once a hub of learning and intellectual curiosity, was now gripped by a sense of dread and uncertainty. In response to the crisis, the school authorities took the unprecedented step of temporarily closing down the institution, hoping to restore order and calm. As the news of Tony's death sank in, the Viking confraternity was thrown into a state of turmoil. Some members, still reeling from the shock of their brother's untimely demise, couldn't help but feel a sense of anger and betrayal. They blamed Tony for his own death, citing the Viking orientation that emphasized the importance of knowing and recognizing one's fellow members. "A Viking you know is the Viking you anchor," they quoted, shaking their heads in dismay. Tony's mistake, they argued, was a fatal one. He had mistaken strangers for brothers, and paid the ultimate price for his error. In the aftermath of Tony's tragic assassination, the Viking leaders within the state issued a directive to their members, urging them to exercise restraint and refrain from retaliating against the Black Axe confraternity. This decision was motivated by a desire to prevent further escalation of the violence and to restore a sense of peace and normalcy within the institution and its surrounding community. The Viking leaders emphasized the importance of giving peace a chance, allowing students and locals to go about their daily lives without fear of violence or intimidation. This message of restraint and calm was heeded by the Viking members, who chose not to retaliate against the Black Axe. As a result, a period of relative calm descended upon the state, with no major confraternity-related incidents reported for several months. However, this fragile peace was shattered on the 15th of October, a day significant to the Vikings as it marked the celebration of Norsemen's Day. On this day, the Vikings launched a surprise attack on a Black Axe member, killing him in a brazen display of violence. The motivations behind this attack were subject to interpretation, with some speculating that it was a belated response to Tony's assassination at Akwaibom State University. Others, however, dismissed this notion, arguing that the killing of the Black Axe member on Norsemen's Day was an isolated incident, unconnected to the events that had transpired at the university. Despite the uncertainty surrounding the motivations behind the attack, one thing was clear: the fragile peace that had existed for several months had been shattered, and the stage was set for a renewed cycle of violence. The Black Axe confraternity wasted little time in responding to the Vikings' attack. In a swift and deadly reprisal, they struck down a Viking member, sending a clear message that they would not be intimidated or deterred. The Vikings, however, refused to back down, and in a shocking display of brutality, they killed another Black Axe member, a respected headmaster at a local school in Akwaibom. As the violence continued to escalate, it became clear that the cycle of retaliation and revenge would only lead to further bloodshed and tragedy. It was a stark reminder of the senseless destruction and harm caused by cultism and violent lifestyles. As the people of Akwaibom struggled to come to terms with the latest outbreak of violence, one message echoed through the community: say no to cultism and violent lifestyle.